All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Hillary Morton, and as Dee Dee said, I am one of the newer members. I am a service analyst, and I'm just going to go over some data health checks, some reports that you can run regularly, and then just some syncs that Infinite Campers provides so that we can make sure everything from District Edition is synced back up to State Edition. So our Infinite Campus data flow. District Edition users create and update most of their data within the District Edition of Infinite Campus. All records are synced to State Edition, typically within a few minutes of being saved. Things like attendance, assignments, grades, transcript, and photos do not sync to State Edition. Those are things that we don't see in the State Edition of Infinite Campus. State Edition users create and publish some data back down to districts. Some of those things are state assessment scores, migrant records, and foster care records. Missing child process matches students and enrollments in State Edition to create and update records in districts. So why do sync issues matter? Sync issues matter because State Edition data is used by Student Locator, Student Records Transfer, Staff Locator, Student Data Review and Rosters, our SDRR system, and by our KDE staff. So what are some things that we can do to monitor data quality? There are several types of reports that Infinite Campus administrators can use to identify and correct discrepancies between State and District Edition and some data quality issues. There are some state comparison reports, verification reports, and then we have our quality assurance reports. When you run these reports and correct issues regularly, they help prevent issues with state reporting as well as SDRR. The first report I'm going to go over is our state enrollment verification. I just have a screenshot right here of what it looks like and the check boxes that you should have checked when you run it. It's under student information reports, and it's just state enrollment verification. This report taps into the State Edition database to identify missing records and determine differences in enrollment data. State excluded calendars should not be included in the search since the data does not sync. And this report includes the person ID and enrollment ID needed by the Selective Sync tools. The next report is the state enrollment overlap. Once again, a screenshot. It's found in the same area right above the state enrollment verification. This report will output overlapping enrollments with other districts from State Edition data. The primary service type enrollments should not overlap for more than one day. The state person identity verification report. This is in census reportings, and then you will find it under state person identity verification. This report communicates with State Edition to compare the district person identity with the records in state. If the person identity record is missing from State Edition, you do not do a selective sync of the person ID. And if the missing record fails to sync, you'll need to contact the KDE attendance mailbox. And I will have their information listed here at the end. The verification summary. This is a report that we run at KDE, but you can also run here in District Edition. It analyzes the data synchronization results between district and state level records. You can choose to re-verify to update these reports, but it includes excluded calendars. Person identity records include students and staff. Excluded calendars do not sync to State Edition, but persons and enrollments from excluded calendars will be included in these reports. Another thing that you might want to do is you want to check for duplicate students. One of the things that you can do is do the duplicate IDs, which identifies students with the same student number or state ID within district, including inactive students. If the duplicates refer to the same person, that information is syncing to the state ID or multiple state IDs. Duplicate student search displays student records where there's a match on demographic information based on either an exact match or a sound text match. If duplicate students exist, syncs might fail to State Edition. So if your sync fails, you will want to do manual syncs. At times, records don't sync automatically. Despite running and maintaining data health checks, records still might need to be manually synced. In these situations, you need your person identity, or a person identity sync is performed in order to manually sync these records. So syncing missing state records. The path that you would go through this is system administration, data utilities, and resyncing state data, and then you're going to choose Selective Sync. The Selective Sync tool is used to manually sync person identity and enrollment records. The person ID or enrollment ID are needed to resync records, and they're included in reports covered previously. You're going to choose View History to determine if a resync was successful in correcting discrepancies between state and district edition. When you choose the View History link, you'll see that you'll see over here on my screenshot that it says complete, but sometimes it'll say record 0 out of 1. That means that nothing actually synced. When you see in the second one below where it says records 8 out of 8, that 8 of those 8 records actually synced to state edition. So when verifying if a sync is successful, you just want to make sure that the records count shows successful or attempted. If attempting to resync multiple records, use the hyperlink on the keys to determine which are successful. If the person identity fails to resync, using the person ID, email the attendants, the KDE attendants email the person ID, and they can assist with that. Our quality assurance reports, they are found in our Kentucky State Reporting. They are custom reports that we work on here at KDE. They provide detailed and aggregate data to verify data reported on school report card for quality assurance. SDRR data will be incorrect if students are not reporting correctly on these reports. And some of the bigger reports that we use for the SDRR are the QA SPED, the QA English Learners, and the QA Free and Reduced Lunch. The QA SPED also has an error report to assist districts with their special education records for students with disabilities. So here are some reasons that your syncs may fail. One of the number one reasons is because duplicate primary enrollment records on the same day in the same school. So for example, there's a no-show and an E01 enrollment on the same day in the same school. Another reason is that duplicate records exist for the student within the district. So what you're going to want to do in this situation is at the top, you're going to select all years, all people, and search for the student by name. If duplicate records exist for the student, use the Combine Person tool to combine the records. Here are a few more reasons why your syncs may fail. There's another student that exists with the exact same state ID. So you're going to use the student locator for the state ID, and you're going to check to see if the name and the date of birth are the exact match to the student. Then you'll hover over the name to see where the student is currently enrolled and compare the data with your student. If it does not match, another student exists in state edition with that exact same state ID. So we're going to email the attendance mailbox to assist in assigning a new state ID to one of those students. If there are too many changes to the student demographic information, it's going to break the link to the existing student record in state edition, and they will not sync. So what you'll want to do is you're going to want to email the attendance mailbox for assistance with that. And once all these conflicts are corrected, you're going to want to go back in and try to do another manual sync. So that concludes my presentation. The KDE attendance mailbox are the ones that do the assistance with the manual syncs, and they can also help with Combined Person tools. I help out with SDRR, so I will be one of your primary contacts when SDRR opens, and I can help you in troubleshooting to determine when syncs are needed or what may be causing those records to be broke.
Thank you. We do have one question.
Okay.
Hold on, because I'm echoing. See if that's better. Okay. All right. Anyway, the one question we have is, how often do you recommend we do data syncs?
Stuff should automatically sync. You can do a person identity data sync in the middle of the day. If you're just doing like one person, one enrollment, you can do them weekly, but you may not need to do data syncs if you're running those reports and you're checking them regularly, which weekly, at least weekly, if you're running those reports weekly, it will help you determine if a data sync is needed. So you don't have to do data syncs necessarily just to determine the syncs. Those reports will kind of cue you in if there are some discrepancies between district and state edition.
There are some opportunities. I'm going to kind of add a little bit to what you said. If you're a district that does a lot in the back end, you know, we talked about earlier today, if you're making some changes to the back end of the database, you should always sync after you finish a batch update, because otherwise that information is not going to get up to state edition. What you do on the front end, Infinite Campus has processes in place that as you push those buttons and things like that, that data will automatically sync. It doesn't sync when it runs into an issue like a duplicate SID, things like that. Those are the things that you're looking for. And while, you know, it's not something you have to look for all the time, it is a good practice to look at it before key reporting times. Like, you know that we're going to be, you know, looking at data on special education students as 12-1. You know, if you know that, you know, in November, start doing that to make sure all the data, you know, is syncing. If you know SDRR is getting ready to open and you want your data to be as clean as possible, go ahead and sync that. Now, there are times when we try to do that at the state level too, and try to sync, but sometimes, you know, something will open and we won't even realize it until it's already done and we're, you know, we're a little bit behind. So if you could be proactive on some of those syncs at specific times of the year when you know there's reporting that's going to be coming up at the end of the year before you know, change over your years, everything, to make sure things have synced, that's going to always help you in the long run have fewer issues with data not being pulled from like state edition and matching what you have at the local level.